The distress signal reached Earth 47 hours after New Haven Colony went dark. Commander Sarah Chen stood in the Central Command briefing room, watching the holographic playback of the final transmission. The image flickered with static, showing smoke-filled corridors and the desperate face of Colony Administrator Williams. "They're targeting the schools first," Williams gasped, his voice breaking through the interference. "The children, they're hunting our children. This isn't conquest, it's extermination. Tell Earth, tell them what they did here." The transmission cut to black. Silence filled the room like a physical weight. General Martinez cleared his throat, his weathered hands gripping the conference table's edge. Reconnaissance drones confirmed total destruction. Population 0. The Zephyrian Empire has claimed responsibility. Chun felt something cold settle in her chest. New Haven had been a peaceful agricultural colony, home to 12,000 civilians. Nearly 3,000 of them had been children. "Show me the tactical analysis," she said quietly. The hologram shifted, displaying the colony's remains. Where the elementary school had stood, only a crater remained. The playground equipment lay twisted and melted. The Zephyrian forces had used plasma bombardment specifically on areas where children gathered. "It appears to be psychological warfare," the intelligence officer reported. "The Zephyrians studied our behavioral patterns. They concluded that targeting our young would demoralize human resistance across all sectors." Chen's jaw tightened. Around the table, she saw the same expression mirrored on every face. These weren't just military officers anymore. They were parents, siblings, protectors of their species' future. Something fundamental had shifted in the room's atmosphere. "Ma'am." Communications Specialist Torres spoke up, her voice trembling. "We're receiving similar reports from the Outer Rim. The Zephyrians are systematically targeting civilian populations, with special focus on educational facilities and nurseries." The weight of those words settled over everyone present. This wasn't random violence. It was calculated genocide aimed at humanity's most vulnerable. General Martinez stood slowly. "Sarah, I've served 40 years, fought in the Proxima campaign, survived the Asteroid Belt War. I've seen humanity at its worst and its best." He paused, looking directly at her. "But I've never seen us truly angry. Not like this." Chen accessed her neural implant, connecting to the Global Defense Network. What she saw there made her breath catch. Across human space, every military installation was reporting the same phenomenon. Recruitment centers overwhelmed, reserve units activating without orders, civilian vessels requesting weapon upgrades. "The Senate is calling an emergency session," Torres reported. "Admiral Fletcher is en route from the Mars shipyards. The Colonial Defense Force is mobilizing everything they have." But Chen could see it was already beyond official channels. Humanity was responding on a cellular level, like an immune system recognizing a deadly threat. The neural link showed her the data streams. Industrial production shifting to military hardware, scientific research pivoting to weapons development. Every human settlement preparing for war. "Get me a direct line to President Hassan," Chen ordered. "And patch me through to every sector commander, every fleet captain, every station chief in human space." As the connections established, Chen stood before the massive tactical display, showing the Zephyrian Empire's territory. They controlled 47 star systems, commanded a fleet of over 10,000 vessels, and ruled more than 100 billion subjects across multiple species. They had also just declared war on humanity's children. "This is Commander Chun, Earth Central Command," she broadcast across the network. "As of this moment, all human forces are authorized to engage Zephyrian assets with extreme prejudice. Rules of engagement are suspended. No quarter given." The responses flooded back immediately. Every human commander, from the rim stations to the core worlds, acknowledged with the same deadly calm. No bravado, no battle cries. Just cold, methodical acceptance. General Martinez watched the tactical board update as human forces began moving. "Sarah, they have no idea what they've done, do they?" Chen shook her head. "The Zephyrians studied our psychology, but they missed something crucial. They think we're just another species that can be intimidated." She gestured to the display showing human fleets converging from across the galaxy. They don't understand that we don't just fight for territory or resources. When you threaten our children, you threaten our future, our purpose, our reason for existing. The holographic display showed the first human strike force entering Zephyrian space. No warnings, no diplomatic channels, just humanity's children avenged with plasma and steel. How long until our main fleet reaches their home system? Chen asked. 72 hours at maximum burn, Martinez replied. Chen nodded, watching the tactical projections. The Zephyrians had superior numbers and advanced technology. Under normal circumstances, humanity would negotiate, find a peaceful solution, accept casualties as the cost of civilization. But these weren't normal circumstances anymore. Captain James Reeves stood on the bridge of the U.S. Retribution, watching Zephyrian System Beta 7 burn before them. The alien outpost had fallen within minutes, its defenders unprepared for the ferocity of the human assault. But victory felt hollow when measured against what they'd found in the ruins below. Sir, Lieutenant Park's voice cracked as she delivered her report. The archaeological team confirms it. The Zephyrians have been using human children as test subjects. Biological experiments, psychological torture protocols. The data banks show they've been at this for months. Reeves closed his eyes, feeling the weight of command like never before. Behind him, his crew worked in grim silence. These were professional soldiers, veterans of a dozen conflicts. But the evidence from the surface had shaken everyone to their core. How many? He asked quietly. Over 400 confirmed victims across their research facilities. Park replied. All between ages 5 and 15. All taken from the Outer Rim colonies before New Haven. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of ship systems. Reeves opened his eyes and studied the tactical display. The Zephyrian home fleet was moving to intercept them. 17 capital ships, supported by over 200 smaller vessels. By any reasonable analysis, his task force was outnumbered 3-1. But reason had died with the first child, who screamed in a Zephyrian laboratory. Communications. Get me Admiral Fletcher on the command frequency, Reeves ordered. The holographic image of Admiral Fletcher materialized, his face set in lines of granite. Behind him, the bridge of the massive dreadnought Vengeance hummed with activity. James, what's your status? Fletcher asked. Beta 7 is neutralized, sir. We've recovered the research data. Reeves paused, struggling with the words. Sir, it's worse than we imagined. The Zephyrians didn't just target children for psychological impact. They've been studying human development patterns, looking for ways to maximize suffering. This was scientific torture on an industrial scale. Fletcher's expression darkened further. Understood. We've received similar reports from Task Forces 7 and 12. The Zephyrians have been running a coordinated campaign against human children across multiple sectors. Admiral, the home fleet is moving to engage us. 17 capital ships. We're outnumbered, but nothing, Captain, Fletcher interrupted. You have your orders. No Zephyrian vessel leaves that system alive. The transmission ended, and Reeves turned back to his crew. They were looking at him with expressions he'd never seen before. Not fear, not uncertainty, but something harder, something colder. Tactical, what's our weapon status? He asked. All systems green, sir. Nuclear warheads armed and ready. Plasma cannons charged to full capacity. Point defense systems online. Navigation, plot an intercept course for the Zephyrian fleet. Maximum burn. Sir, his first officer, Commander Walsh, stepped closer. The crew is requesting permission to remove the safety limiters on our weapon systems. Reeves studied his exo's face. Walsh was a by-the-book officer, someone who followed regulations to the letter. For him to make such a request meant the entire crew was thinking the same thing. Denied, Reeves said quietly. We follow human military protocol. Walsh nodded, but Reeves could see the disappointment in his eyes. The crew wanted blood, wanted to match the Zephyrians' brutality with their own. But that's not who humanity was, even now, even with rage burning in every heart. However, Reeves continued, Inform all departments that we will be engaging at point-blank range. No prisoners. No survivors. Complete destruction of all enemy assets. The bridge crew straightened. That they could do. That they would do gladly. Sir, incoming transmission from the Zephyrian flagship. Communications reported. Put it through. The image of a tall, insectoid creature appeared on the main screen. The Zephyrian commander's multifaceted eyes gleamed with what might have been amusement. Human vessel. The alien spoke through a translation matrix. I am War Leader Skekthal of the Imperial Fleet. You are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now, and we will make your death swift. Reeves stepped forward, letting the alien see his face clearly. War Leader, I am Captain James Reeves of the United Earth Fleet. You killed our children. The Zephyrians' mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. Your young were weak. We merely studied their limits before they expired. Such research advances our understanding of human psychology. Something cold and final settled in Reeves' chest. He'd hoped, even now, that there might be some misunderstanding, some way to resolve this without total war. There wasn't. War Leader Skekthal, Reeves said calmly. You made one critical error in your research. You studied how to break human children, but you failed to study what happens when you succeed. The alien commander's expression shifted, perhaps sensing something in Reeves' tone. All ships, this is Captain Reeves. Weapons free. No quarter. The Retribution's main guns opened fire, and 17 other human vessels did the same. The space between the fleets lit up with plasma and nuclear fire. The Zephyrians returned fire, their weapons advanced and deadly. But they were fighting an enemy they didn't understand, one driven by something beyond tactics or strategy. They were fighting humanity's protective instinct unleashed. Admiral Fletcher watched the tactical display from the bridge of the U.S. Vengeance as human fleets converged on the Zephyrian home system from 6 different vectors. What he saw defied every principle of military doctrine he'd learned in 30 years of service. Ships that should have been in dry dock were fighting at full capacity. Crews that should have been exhausted were performing at peak efficiency. Even the civilians were contributing, converting cargo vessels into makeshift warships. Admiral, his intelligence officer reported, we're detecting massive power signatures from the planet's surface. The Zephyrians are activating their planetary defense grid. Fletcher nodded grimly. The Zephyrian homeworld boasted the most sophisticated defense network in known space. Energy shields that could deflect asteroid impacts, orbital platforms armed with antimatter weapons, and a fleet anchorage housing over 300 vessels. By all logic, a direct assault should be impossible. But logic had died with the first human child. Sir, Communications Specialist Reed spoke up. We're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's human. Fletcher felt his blood freeze. Put it through. Audio only. A child's voice filled the bridge, weak and terrified. Please, if anyone can hear this, they have us in the deep labs. There are so many of us. They do things, terrible things. Please, someone help us. The transmission cut to static. The bridge fell silent except for the sound of barely controlled breathing. How many? Fletcher asked quietly. Long-range sensors detect approximately 2,000 human life signs on the planetary surface. The tactical officer reported, all concentrated in underground facilities. 2,000 children, still alive, still suffering. Fletcher accessed his command neural link, connecting to every ship captain in the assault fleet. This is Admiral Fletcher. New intelligence confirms approximately 2,000 human civilians are being held in surface facilities. This is now a rescue operation. The responses flooded back immediately. Every captain acknowledged, but Fletcher could hear the strain in their voices. They all understood what this meant. A planetary assault to rescue hostages was the most difficult military operation possible. The odds of success were minimal. The odds of leaving those children behind were 0. Admiral, his first officer, Captain Morrison, stepped beside him. Sir, I've been monitoring communications across the fleet. The crews are requesting permission to volunteer for the surface assault. Fletcher studied the tactical display. The Zephyrian defenses were formidable, but they were designed to repel fleet actions, not ground invasions. Still, getting troops to the surface alive would require sacrifices. How many volunteers? He asked. Everyone, sir. Every Marine, every pilot, every able-bodied crew member. They're all volunteering. Fletcher closed his eyes. In his 40 years of service, he'd never seen anything like this. Humanity had faced extinction before, fought desperate battles against impossible odds. But this was different. This was personal on a species level. Sir, incoming transmission from Earth Command, Reed reported. It's President Hassan. The holographic image of President Hassan materialized, her face drawn with exhaustion and barely controlled fury. Admiral Fletcher, what's your status? Ma'am, we have confirmed hostages on the surface. Approximately 2,000 children. I'm preparing a rescue operation. Hassan nodded grimly. Admiral, I want you to understand something. The entire human population is watching this battle. Every news feed, every communication channel, every neural network is focused on your fleet. The people aren't asking about casualty reports or strategic objectives. They're asking about those children. Fletcher understood. This wasn't just a military operation anymore. This was humanity's soul being tested. Ma'am, I need you to authorize unrestricted rules of engagement. The Zephyrians have fortified the hostage sites. Extraction will require maximum force. Authorized, Hassan replied without hesitation. Admiral, bring our children home. The transmission ended, and Fletcher turned to his crew. They were all looking at him with the same expression, grim determination mixed with barely controlled rage. All hands, this is Admiral Fletcher, he announced over the ship's communication system. In 30 minutes, we begin our assault on the Zephyrian homeworld. Our mission is simple. Rescue 2,000 human children who are being held in underground facilities. He paused, looking out at the enemy planet, growing larger on the main screen. I want every member of this crew to understand something. The Zephyrians chose to target our children because they thought it would make us weak, make us surrender. They were wrong. When you threaten our young, you don't just attack our bodies or our territory. You attack our future, our hope, our reason for existing. The ship's corridors echoed with the sound of weapons being charged, armor being sealed, and troops moving to assault positions. The enemy has advanced technology, superior numbers, and fortified positions. Under normal circumstances, this mission would be classified as a suicide run. Fletcher's voice carried clearly through every deck, every compartment. But these aren't normal circumstances. These are our children down there, and we will not leave them behind. The tactical display showed the Zephyrian fleet moving to intercept them, energy signatures spiking as weapon systems came online. The planetary defenses were powering up, ready to repel the human assault. But Fletcher could see something the Zephyrians couldn't. In the sensor readings, in the communication protocols, in the very way his ships moved through space, humanity had changed. They weren't just soldiers anymore. They were protectors operating on instinct older than civilization. All ships, Fletcher commanded, begin the assault. Priority target, the underground facilities. Rules of engagement, anything between us and those children dies. The human fleet opened fire, and space lit up with the fury of a species protecting its young. The Zephyrians were about to learn why no predator in Earth's evolutionary history had ever survived targeting human children. Colonel Maria Santos hit the ground running as her dropship crashed through the burning atmosphere of the Zephyrian homeworld. Around her, 200 Marines moved with lethal precision through the underground facility, their weapons cutting through alien defenders like they were paper targets. But it wasn't the aliens' weakness that struck her. It was humanity's transformation. Section Alpha, report. She commanded through her comm system. Facility Level 3 secured, came the reply from Sergeant Hayes. We found them, Colonel. The children. They're alive. Santos felt her heart clench. After 6 hours of brutal fighting, they'd finally reached the primary detention area. But she could hear something in Hayes' voice that made her stomach turn. What's their condition, Sergeant? A long pause. Ma'am, you need to see this yourself. Santos moved through the facility's twisted corridors, stepping over the remains of Zephyrian guards. Her Marines had shown no mercy, no hesitation. These weren't the professional soldiers she'd trained with for years. They were something harder, something more primal. She reached the detention level and understood immediately. The children were arranged in observation cells, each one equipped with monitoring equipment that tracked every biological response. Pain receptors, fear indicators, neural activity patterns. The Zephyrians hadn't just been torturing human children. They'd been scientifically cataloging their suffering. "Jesus Christ," Santos whispered. "Ma'am." Hayes approached her, his face pale beneath his helmet. "The medical team says most of them can be saved. But some have been here for months." Santos looked through the transparent barriers at faces that should have been laughing, playing, learning about the universe. Instead, she saw eyes that had witnessed horrors no adult should endure, let alone children. "How many?" she asked. 1,843 confirmed survivors, Hayes replied. "We lost some before we got here." Before we got here. The words hit Santos like a physical blow. While they'd been mobilizing fleets and planning assaults, children had been dying in these cells. "Colonel," her communications officer called out, "Admiral Fletcher is requesting a status report." Santos activated her link to the fleet command. "Admiral, we have control of the primary facility. Casualties are heavy on both sides, but we're extracting the survivors." "Understood, Colonel. What's your assessment of the Zephyrian research program?" Santos looked around the facility, taking in the sophisticated equipment, the detailed records, the clinical precision of the torture chambers. "Sir, this wasn't random cruelty. The Zephyrians were conducting systematic psychological warfare research. They were studying how to maximize human suffering, presumably to break our resistance in future conflicts." "Are you telling me this was premeditated genocide research?" "Yes, sir. And Admiral." Santos paused, watching her Marines gently carrying traumatized children toward the extraction points. "They were planning to expand the program. We found documentation indicating they intended to target every human colony in the Outer Rim." The silence on the comm channel stretched long enough that Santos thought the connection had failed. "Colonel," Fletcher's voice came back harder than before, "I need you to secure every piece of data in that facility. Every record, every research file, every communication log." "Understood, sir." "And Colonel, I want you to broadcast everything. Every image, every document, every piece of evidence. Send it to every human world, every news network, every communication channel in human space." Santos understood. This wasn't about military intelligence anymore. This was about showing humanity exactly what they were fighting against. "Sir, won't that violate protocols about classified material?" "Colonel, there are no protocols for this. There are no precedents. The Zephyrians crossed a line that doesn't exist in any military manual." Fletcher's voice carried across space with absolute authority. "I want every human being in the galaxy to see what happened here. I want them to understand why we're not stopping until every Zephyrian world burns." Santos began uploading the facility's data banks to the fleet network. Within minutes, the evidence would reach Earth, then spread across human space at light speed. "Ma'am." Sergeant Hayes approached again. "The children are asking questions. They want to know if their families are coming for them." Santos looked at the young faces gathering around her Marines. Some were crying, some were silent. All were broken in ways that might never fully heal. "Tell them yes," she said firmly. "Tell them their families sent us. Tell them they're going home." As the evacuation continued, Santos watched her Marines work with a gentleness that seemed impossible after the violence they'd unleashed getting here. These soldiers had fought through 3 levels of hardened defenses, shown no mercy to enemy combatants, and destroyed everything in their path. Now they were cradling traumatized children, offering water and comfort, speaking in soft voices about home and safety. "Colonel," her tactical officer reported, "surface operations are complete. All hostile forces in this sector have been eliminated." Santos nodded, but her attention was focused on a small girl, maybe 7 years old, who was clinging to one of her Marines. The child was whispering something, and the hardened soldier was listening intently, his weapon forgotten. "What's she saying?" Santos asked. She's asking if the monsters are really gone. The Marine replied, his voice thick. She wants to know if they'll come back. Santos knelt down beside the child, meeting her eyes. Sweetheart, the monsters are gone, and they're never coming back. We promise. The little girl nodded and buried her face against the Marine's armor. Above them, Santos could hear the thunder of human ships in orbit, methodically destroying every Zephyrian military installation on the planet. There would be no negotiations, no prisoner exchanges, no diplomatic solutions. The Zephyrians had taught humanity a simple lesson. When you target our children, there are no rules anymore. There is only justice, delivered with the full fury of a species protecting its future. And humanity was very good at delivering justice. 6 months after the liberation of the Zephyrian homeworld, Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood before the Galactic Council's Emergency Assembly, looking out at representatives from 47 different species. The Great Chamber on Nexus Station had hosted thousands of diplomatic sessions over the centuries, but none quite like this one. The evidence she'd presented was displayed on massive holographic screens around the chamber. Detailed documentation of the Zephyrian Child Experimentation Program, medical records from the survivors, and tactical analyses of humanity's response. The alien delegates sat in uncomfortable silence, processing what they'd witnessed. Honored representatives, Vasquez began, her voice echoing in the vast space. The human species formally requests recognition of our actions as justified under the Galactic Convention on the Protection of Civilian Populations. The Zephyrian delegate, one of the few survivors of their empire's collapse, rose from his designated area. The human response was disproportionate to the threat. They destroyed our entire civilization over the actions of a military research division. Vasquez turned to face the insectoid alien directly. Ambassador Klextar, your military research division systematically tortured over 2,000 human children. Your empire targeted civilian populations across 12 star systems. You conducted medical experiments that violated every principle of civilized conduct. War crimes, yes, Klextar acknowledged, but the humans destroyed 47 worlds, eliminated our entire fleet, and displaced over 100 billion Zephyrian civilians. The punishment exceeded the crime. A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Vasquez had expected this argument. It was the same one being debated across human space and beyond. Ambassador, Vasquez replied calmly, you're operating under a fundamental misunderstanding of human psychology. Your species studied our behavioral patterns, but you missed something crucial. She gestured to the evidence displays. You saw that humans form strong emotional bonds with their offspring. You concluded that targeting our children would weaken our military response, make us more likely to surrender or negotiate. The chamber remained silent, every delegate focused on her words. But you failed to understand the true nature of human protective instinct. When you threaten our children, you don't just attack individuals, you attack the future of our species. Every human being, regardless of faction, politics, or personal beliefs, becomes part of a unified response. Vasquez activated her neural interface, connecting to the chamber's display systems. New data appeared on the screens: production statistics, recruitment numbers, civilian participation rates. Within 72 hours of the New Haven massacre, human industrial output increased by 300%. Military recruitment jumped by 800%. Civilian vessels were voluntarily converted to warships. Scientific research pivoted to weapons development. Every aspect of human civilization realigned toward a single purpose. The Centauri delegate, a tall humanoid with blue-tinted skin, leaned forward. Ambassador Vasquez, are you suggesting that humans become a different species when their young are threatened? Not different, Ambassador Kethral. More focused, more unified, more dangerous. Vasquez paused, letting her words sink in. The Zephyrians didn't just commit war crimes. They triggered an evolutionary response that's kept humanity alive for millions of years. Klextar's mandibles clicked in agitation. You speak of evolution as if it justifies genocide. We did not intend to exterminate humanity. No, Vasquez agreed. You intended something worse. You intended to break our spirit, to make us too afraid to resist your expansion. You wanted to teach the galaxy that humans could be cowed by targeting our most vulnerable. She turned to address the full council. Honorable delegates, I want you to understand something about human nature. We are not the most advanced species in the galaxy. We're not the strongest, or the smartest, or the most technologically sophisticated. But we have one trait that has kept us alive since we lived in caves on Earth. We protect our young at any cost. The Altarian delegate, a crystalline being that communicated through harmonic frequencies, resonated a question that the translation matrix rendered as, "Are you threatening us, Ambassador?" Vasquez shook her head. "I'm explaining us. Humanity has no desire for conquest or expansion at the expense of other species. We seek trade, cooperation, mutual benefit. But if you target our children, you will face the same response the Zephyrians did." She activated another display, showing the current status of former Zephyrian territory. We didn't conquer their worlds. We evacuated their civilians to safe sectors and established refugee support systems. We didn't enslave their population or seize their resources. We simply removed their ability to ever threaten children again. The council chamber buzzed with translated conversations as delegates discussed among themselves. Vasquez waited patiently, knowing that her words had accomplished their purpose. Finally, the council chairman, an ancient being from the first species to achieve faster-than-light travel, called for order. "Ambassador Vasquez, the council recognizes the justification for humanity's response. However, we must establish protocols to prevent such conflicts in the future." Vasquez nodded. Humanity proposes a simple addition to the Galactic Convention. Article 15, Protection of Juvenile Populations. Any species that deliberately targets the young of another species forfeits all diplomatic immunity and protection under galactic law. The vote was unanimous. As the session concluded, Vasquez reflected on what humanity had become in the past 6 months. They'd proven themselves capable of unified action on a scale never before witnessed. They'd demonstrated that their protective instincts could mobilize entire civilizations. But most importantly, they'd sent a message that would echo across the galaxy for generations. Humanity's children were off-limits. Touch them, and face the consequences. The Zephyrian Empire had learned that lesson too late. Every other species in the galaxy now had the opportunity to learn it the easy way. Vasquez hoped they were smart enough to take it.